Senator Tammy Duckworth just delivered one of the most direct takedowns we've seen in a congressional hearing. She called out Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth for wasting billions, risking service members' lives, and turning the military into a political tool. What she said cuts right to the heart of leadership, accountability, and national security. And it's something every American should hear.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In response to my colleague from Oklahoma, I believe the Secretary of Defense has just responded last week and admitted that the $1 billion mission that he led against the Houthis, who do not have a navy, has not restored the transit of U.S. flag commercial vessels through the Red Sea, and in fact has resulted in the loss of 2 F-18 Hornets to the tune of $60 million apiece, as well as, I believe the last count was 7 Reaper drones to the tune of another $200 million. You are blowing through money like my fellow cadets and I did in our first Liberty after basic camp. Luckily, I didn't end up with a questionable tattoo. Your failures, Mr. Secretary, since you've taken office has been staggering. You sent classified operational information over Signal to chest thump in front of your wife, who, by the way, has no security clearance, risking service member lives in the process. You blew the $1 billion fight against the Houthis, whom, again, as my colleague says, has no navy, and yet you lost all of those aircraft. You've created such a hostile command environment that no one wants to serve as your chief of staff or work with you in other senior DoD leadership roles. But what we should all be talking about more than all of this is that you have an unjustified, un-American misuse of the military in American cities, pulling resources and attention away from core missions to the detriment of the country, the war fighters, and yes, the war fighting that you claim to love. I don't know if this is because you are too inexperienced and incompetent to understand the real threats facing our country, or if it's because you are just an unqualified yes man who can't tell the president how to keep Americans safe. You are focusing on renaming basis for Confederate generals. You said just now to Senator King that to a man and to a woman, we would rather be associated with the old Confederate names. Well, I am one of those women. I served at Fort Rucker, Alabama, a base that was named for a traitor who took arms against the United States of America, led troops who killed Americans. It was renamed for Mike Novosel, a Medal of Honor recipient who, in his citation for the Medal of Honor, includes that he saved 29 American lives, to include hovering backwards in a helicopter towards an enemy bunker where a wounded American was laying and saved that person, including after being taken fire himself. I know a little something about what it takes to fly a helicopter when you've been hit by enemy fire. That was heroic. I'd rather be associated with Mike Novosel than a failed Confederate traitor. I don't know whether you are inexperienced or too incompetent, but I wonder when you will actually focus on our nation's warfighting mission. We know that California is just a deliberate, systematic, political and dangerous campaign led by you. We should not be using our military to play cops against Americans. General Kane, as chairman, a key part of your job is to coordinate military planning across the joint force. Is the department currently incorporating into any military plans expanding the use of the reserve forces to include the National Guard or active duty troops to support domestic law enforcement, including in other locations in the United States?
Senator, you know, we careful.
No, General.
Well, it's not really a yes or no question, Madam Senator. We plan all kinds of different things.
I think it is a yes or no question.
I'm not aware of anything, but the reason why I'm answering is the tags may be looking at something that I'm not aware of.
What are you doing at your level? You're not aware of that happening at your level? Because we know that on his first day, President Trump directed U.S. Northern Command to revise its unified command plan to add new planning requirements to combat, and I quote, criminal activities. A series of follow-up executive orders continue to redirect DoD priorities to supporting domestic law enforcement, including one in April that tells DoD, and I quote, use national security assets for law and order. In other words, do law enforcement's job. I'd like to enter these executive orders into the record, Mr. Chairman.
Is there objection? Without objection, so ordered.
Secretary Hegseth, you say you are focused on warfighting and warriors. These are your words. Yet you are diverting untold DoD resources and attention to a fundamentally non-military mission of domestic policing. Across the country, we have qualified police officers who are trained for that mission. They know those streets better than the Marines you deploy to Los Angeles, who normally focus on the Indo-Pacific. And you recently approved 700 more troops in 3 other states to do admin and logistics works for ICE. You say all of this is valuable training, but I would much rather have our troops do tough, realistic training relevant to high-end combat. Instead of typing in spreadsheets for ICE, they should be conducting live fire maneuver exercises. Instead of patrolling American neighborhoods and standing in front of federal buildings, they should be rehearsing call for fire missions. We have local police who can stand in front of those federal buildings. And the list of distractions goes on. You are encouraging the DoD workforce to go work for DHS in increasing numbers. You're pulling the military away from facing foreign enemies who literally say things like death to America. And you're putting troops with weapons aimed at Americans. Mr. Secretary, let the military get back to its real job. Stop forcing them to do DHSs. And if you want to be DHS Secretary, maybe you can apply for that job when you're fired from this one due to your incompetence.
What we just witnessed wasn't a normal hearing. It wasn't about procedural motions or budget lines. It was a confrontation at the heart of responsibility, a collision between leadership and accountability. Senator Tammy Duckworth stood firm, exposing failures that cost billions and risked lives. From the loss of aircraft in Yemen to classified operations mishandled on unsecured messaging apps, every misstep revealed a pattern of negligence. This was a moment where truth faced power directly. He wasn't just exposing a scandal, he was exposing the rot underneath it. Beyond politics, this moment matters because it strikes at the core of what holds a society together. Democracy relies on transparency, justice demands accountability, and the public trusts institutions to act with competence and moral clarity. This wasn't about partisanship. It was about what power does when left unchecked and how easily its misuse can cascade into danger, waste, and betrayal of those it exists to protect. Calm outrage is the only fitting response. Empathy is the only lens that makes sense. We are all stakeholders in the preservation of integrity. The tension between evidence and explanation was stark. Duckworth detailed how billions were spent without results. A $1 billion mission against a foe with no naval capability ended in the loss of multiple aircraft, while transmitting classified information through unsecured channels risked service members' lives. Bureaucratic language, "I'll get back to you, not aware of any," became a shield. In that haze of vagueness, accountability evaporated. Language became fog, filing cabinets became vaults of invisibility, and silence became a weapon. Each hesitation mirrored how institutions hide behind procedure while reality burns. When the record disappears, accountability disappears too. This hearing also echoed history. It recalled the Church Committee, when congressional investigators revealed CIA black sites and covert operations. Then, as now, exposure was treated as threat rather than duty. Here, the military, designed for high-stakes defense, had been redirected toward domestic policing, pulled away from its core mission. Duckworth's questions drew a moral line. The military exists to confront real threats abroad, not to serve political agendas at home. This is not nuance, this is principle. The political reflex was clear. Secretary Hegseth's evasions were more than words. They were the embodiment of an institution allergic to scrutiny. Avoidance became a dance, vagueness a shield, deflection a strategy. Duckworth became conscience incarnate, demanding clarity. The official became symbol. How easily command can be compromised when ambition, politics, or incompetence override duty. The stakes were operational, moral, and human. When accountability becomes selective, when the powerful are insulated while the powerless bear the cost, trust phrase. This isn't about files or hearings. It's about whether justice applies upward or only downward. As the room settled, the lesson became clear. Competence, focus, and ethical leadership are not optional. They are essential. When truth becomes negotiable, democracy becomes theater. When power hides behind procedure, justice becomes performance. The soldiers in Yemen and all those who rely on these institutions deserve more than apologies. They deserve leadership that acts with clarity, foresight, and moral courage. And if we remain vigilant, we can ensure that those entrusted with power honor their obligations, not just to the system, but to the people they serve. If you believe accountability should reach everyone, not just the powerless, keep this story alive. Like and subscribe to the channel.